How long was Neil Armstrong actually on the moon? When did Europe start speaking English? Did Marco Polo really go to China? CuriosityStream is the streaming service for all things history, plus science, wildlife, and more. What's the real story behind the Mona Lisa? We've got that. What caused the collapse of Rome? We know. Where did we find mankind's earliest ancestor? Come find out. For the holidays, give the gift of curiosity with 25% off gift cards for your curious cohorts. It's holiday shopping season at curiositystream.com/gift.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
In August of 2016, prolonged rainfall from an unpredictable storm resulted in catastrophic flooding in the state of Louisiana. In my city of Denham Springs, 90% of the homes received water, some 4,200 homes. Of those, 3,000 of these homes received 18 inches or more of water, 25 to 30 inches of rain in less than 72 hours. The Amite River, which cuts through the heart of Livingston Parish, crested at 46.2 feet, some 5 feet above its previously recorded record and some 17.2 feet above its flood stage at Denham Springs. This is my story, as it was experienced through my own eyes, the day I saw the river rise. Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the day I saw the river rise. I'm Jim Chapman, and the last time I left you, I was heading down the road, headed down Highway 16, and I was headed to a friend's house to see if I could get some help to get my father-in-law, who was bedridden at that point in time, out of the danger, the floodwaters, the heat, all of those sorts of things that were going on. So, as we discussed, I walked down the road and I saw a road to the right that I was going to cut through because the water on both sides of Highway 16, as I walked, towards my friend's house, which was miles from where we were originally staged as a family, the water kept getting deeper. So at some point, I remember thinking, I need to cut off and maybe cut down one street, and I thought I knew a back way to my friend's house. So that's just what I did. I took off, started heading that way down this neighborhood, and I want you to kind of try to picture this. It seems like I would turn down that road and know exactly where I was going. The issue was everything was inundated, and these neighborhoods that go off of Highway 16, they sink downward. So it's almost like walking into a bowl. No matter where you go, they're much lower than the main highway. And so as you walk through these streets, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. So you don't know how deep it is, until you continue walking and you realize it. So I take off, I'm walking down this street, and it looks like a river. All you can see is where the water hasn't overtopped a house. So you're talking 3 feet deep, pretty strong current. And I just keep walking, and I walk for what seemed like 20 minutes. 3 feet of water became 4 feet of water. 4 feet of water became 4.5 feet of water. And it was literally probably even with my chest at the point I realized I'm in trouble. I was in trouble for 2 reasons. Number one, I had no idea where I was at. I just knew I was at least 20 to 30 minutes from where I started going down that road. So I was tired. I was exhausted, to be honest. I did not realize it would be that hard to walk through that water that deep for that long of a distance. And I was flat out exhausted. There was nothing out there, y'all. Nothing. It's houses on both sides. Of course, no one's in them. But aside from that, it's like you're in the middle of a river. I'm telling you, it was crazy. So I knew one thing. I couldn't turn around at this point, because if I turn around, I didn't know that I would have the energy to get out of that neighborhood without drowning. So I'll never forget this. I just continue to walk, and I'm thinking maybe I'll run into at least where the water's not this high anymore. Really had no idea what to do. And I looked to my right, and it was crazy. You couldn't see the ditches. You couldn't make out the ditches from the street, none of that. So there would be times I would be walking, and I was trying to use the tops of mailboxes as a guide, because some of them you could see the top of the very top of the mailbox. So I knew there's not a ditch right there, and I knew the street was in front of the mailbox. So I tried to line myself that way. But there were points where the mailboxes were inundated. You couldn't see them. And I would actually step off of the street into a ditch, and I would sink. I mean, it would go to my chin at that point. And I'm almost 6 feet tall, so it was deep. But I do remember going down that road and looking to my right, and there was a 2-story house, and there was a woman in the window of the second story. The blinds were drawn, and she was in the window of that second story, and she's looking at me like, "What are you doing out there?" I just remember this look on her face, like it was almost confusion, like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. And I looked up at her, and I gave her like a thumbs up, like I'm okay. Don't know why I did that, because honestly I wasn't. And we'll get into that a little more in a second, because I have an interesting sidebar to that. But anyway, I walk, and now I'm at the point. Again, I'm lost. I have no idea where I'm at. And I know I'm deep into a neighborhood. There's a big neighborhood called Plantation Estates that's close to where I live. And somehow in my mind, I'm thinking I have circled myself around, and now I've ended up in Plantation Estates, because there were a lot of houses. That neighborhood probably has the most houses of anywhere around in the city of Denham Springs. So I'm thinking I got to be in Plantation Estates somewhere. So I'm trying to kind of veer off and go left, because I know if I go left, my friend lives left somewhere, miles down, and I'm in a bind. I literally had a point there where I'm thinking I can take about 7 more steps and I am screwed. I'm going underwater. I mean, the current was that bad. And I had been walking for, I don't know, at that point, probably an hour and a half through this water, chest deep, and in some cases even deeper than that. and I saw a tree. There was it's like a big oak tree. And I thought, if I can just get to that tree, I can grab the tree and catch my breath. All I wanted to do was rest. I felt like if I rest for about 10 minutes and I have something to hold on to, I'll be all right. It was that serious, y'all. I really think had I not seen that tree and had that thought, I would have drowned. Never in my life would I tell you I'm an excellent swimmer. I'm in good shape. Never in my life would I have thought I was going to be in this position, but I sure was. And I pushed, and that, it seemed like, it was probably in reality about 10 steps, but it seemed like about 10,000 by the time I got to it. And I got to that tree and I grabbed that tree. And here's something that'll show you how hard-headed us as guys are. I'm holding on to that tree, and I hear an engine, a boat engine, like off in the distance. And I'm like, oh, it's a boat. This is great, right? So it gets closer and closer, and I can tell wherever it is, it's like on another street, but it's coming my way, and you can hear that engine, whoa, and it get louder and louder, whoa. And here it is. Here it is. They cut right in front of me, and they stop. And they, the guy kind of jokingly said, "Where are you headed?" And I said, "My friend lives somewhere around here, and I'm trying to get to his house." And they said, "What street does he live on?" My friend lived on a street called Harris Road. And I said, "Harris Road?" And they said, "Oh man, you ain't nowhere near Harris Road. Harris Road is way back that way." And they kind of pointed to where it was. And I'm like, wow. I said, I must have got lost, man. I took a turn. I must have turned the wrong direction. I don't know how I ended up here, but they're like, "Yeah, you're probably about 4 miles that way." And they pointed, the opposite direction where I was. But they said, "You stay straight right here." And they point that direction. They said, "You'll run right into it eventually." I'm like, "Oh, that's good to know." I kid you not. This is the best part. They drive off. They drive off and left me holding on to that tree, and I didn't do a damn thing to stop them. And I'm like, why did I just let them drive off? I mean, they never asked if I wanted to get in that boat, and I never, asked if I could get in that boat. So I don't know if they, obviously they probably didn't realize how exhausted I was, but after they left, I'm like, that was crazy. I mean, they literally showed me how to get to my friend's house, and fired it up. They're like, "We got to go," and took off. So I'm like, this is great. And they're gone, and there's no more motors that I can hear. There is nothing I can hear. I mean, it's just dead silence out there, nothing but a bunch of high water. So I stayed wrapped around that tree for about another 5 minutes, and I said, okay, I got to move, because I caught my breath, but I wasn't getting any more energetic, if that makes any sense. And I didn't want to fall asleep holding on to that tree. I didn't know what was going to, I had been up, y'all, since the day before. I'd never slept. So I know I was probably 36, 37 hours in at that point. And, so off I go, and I followed their advice. I went straight and did not deviate. I was swimming between houses, and I remember kind of floating over fences to get there. And then eventually, the way that I guess the current was taking me, and I just had kind of a sixth sense of where I was going. I ended up getting to some water that was not quite as deep. It seemed like that water at some point, and this was probably another hour later, had finally started going from like 4 feet to 3 feet. And then it was basically around my knees. And then it would get some spots where it would go above that again and below that. But I could tell wherever I was going, it was a little higher ground. And boom, I recognize it. I recognize the street. And I recognized it as Harris Road, which is where I wanted to be. And I'm like, thank God. Now, I didn't know where I was on Harris Road. I just recognized that I was on Harris Road. And my sixth sense kind of told me turn right, go right and go down Harris Road. I knew his house was kind of in the middle of that road, but it was off in the back. He lives on a big family property, and his house he built on that family property, but it's kind of on the back side of that family property. But I knew what his relatives' houses look like. So I said, well, I'm going to go right. And I went right. What do? The first thing I do, I step off the road because I didn't know, where the road started and ended and all those sorts of things. And boom, I go underwater, push myself back up. And that was a ditch. Had a lot of that. That sucked. But I found the road again, walked down, and I notice his family's property right there. And I'm like, thank God, that's where I need to be. And they had some water in the front properties, but his was kind of in the back of that property. So the front two houses had some water, and they have a gravel road that runs in between that. And you go down that gravel road, and he had built his house up on a hill in the back part of that property. So I'm cutting through, and I can see, these houses in his neighborhood, or it's not really a neighborhood. It's more like there's a lot of family property on that road. Well, they didn't have as much water. They had maybe a foot in their houses, which is enough, trust me, but it wasn't what I had experienced in my neck of the woods. So, I see people in there, and they're all looking out the window at me. Of course, the water's up kind of high, so they're not really coming out there, and I can't remember who it was. Someone came out on a porch and recognized me, and they're like, Jim? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to Brian's. My friend's name is Brian. I'm going to Brian's house. And they didn't really say anything. I think they were just more or less shocked. So I walked back there, and I kid you not, this is the second kind of funny thing that happened that day. I walked back there, and I see my friend Brian's son, who is young. He might have been, at that time, 9 or 10. And he looks at me. And he was actually standing on the patio. And they had, let me digress for a second before I get into that. When I saw their house, obviously the first thing I'm thinking is, do they have water in their house or not? And they did not. But it was close. It was close to getting in their house, but it was not in their house as of that time. So that was the first thing that I looked for. So I was relieved to see that. I keep walking, and it was a little deep, like right in front of his property. And his property, it's a big yard, so it's probably an acre from the start of his yard to where his house sits. And I kind of hit that start of his yard, and I'm walking, man, and I am exhausted. I'm thinking, gosh, I can't wait to get in there. And his son, who is young at that time, 9, 10 years old, is standing on the porch, in the front porch, and he sees me. And you can see, man, I can read from where I was. I could read his thoughts, and it just looked like he was thinking, what in the world? And I see him turn around and beeline into the house. And then here comes my friend Brian, and he says, Jim? And I said, hey, how are you? And he's like, what the hell are you doing? And I said, let me get to your house and I'll tell you. And so I did. I made it there, thank God. Got in his house and told him the whole story. Said, look, my father-in-law's out there. We can't get him out. The problem, folks, was I had just made that walk, as meandering as it was. I had just made that walk, and there was no way a truck was going to get back to get my father-in-law. That I knew. I mean, he was dry still as far as his house was concerned, but everything around him was 3 and 4 feet of water. There was just no way. So I get inside and I said, I got to get back. And I'll never forget, he looked at me and he said, you ain't going back out in that water, man. You're not going to make it. And I said, I got to make it. I said, dude, my whole family is back there. One thing I knew is they were setting up shelters. The problem was there was no communication, no cell phone service at all at this point. There was no internet service at all at this point with AT&T, which is who we had. So the issue is, if I don't go back and my family goes to a shelter, I will not know what shelter they went to. I had no idea how long they were going to be there. I would literally lose my family for an extended period of time. I knew that. There was no way I was going to let that happen. So as tired as I was, I'm like, I got to get back. He says, dude, do me a favor. Sleep for a little while. Just take a nap and rest. And then go back. You know, once you rest, we'll talk about you going back. I said, okay. And I did. I got we shot the breeze for a little while and kind of discussed the craziness that was going on with this flood. And I laid down and I think I got maybe an hour's sleep, something like that. It wasn't long. And I woke up and I said, I got to go. I got to go back. And he says, man, good luck. We're going to be praying for you, all those sorts of things. And look, I didn't want to go back. The one plus was I knew where I was at that point, and I wasn't going to make this mistake of getting lost again. That was for sure. So I worked my way back. I leave, I go out down Harris Road, and I know that Harris Road leads to Highway 16. And eventually I make it to Highway 16. And I start walking down Highway 16, and it had water on these parts of Highway 16. It wasn't like where I was. They had water across the road. I can't remember for the life of me how much, if it was a foot or 3 feet or whatever, but there was water down it for sure and over it. But eventually, I kept walking and walking and walking, and I probably walked 3 miles or so, and a truck showed up, and there was parts of Highway 16 where you could still drive. And I don't know what these people were doing, but they were nice enough. They said, you need a ride? And I'm like, yes. I had no idea how far I was away from where my family was kind of staged. But yeah, I needed a ride. And I jumped in the back and we went, and I had walked almost the whole way back because I actually jumped in the back of the truck, and I was only in the back of the truck maybe a minute and a half, and we were back to where everybody was staged. You know, half of the city of Denham Springs was right there in that area. And I hopped out, like, now I got to find my family. So my wife sees me and runs up to me, and, she's mad. Now, the time frame between the time that I left and the time that I got back was about 9 hours. 9 hours. Okay. 1 hour was spent sleeping. Maybe another 30 to 45 minutes I was there talking at my friend's house. The rest of that time, so 7 hours of that 9 hours was spent walking through water. So I was tired, and I hadn't slept. I was probably coming on 48 hours being awake at this point. So my wife walks up to me And she's like, where have you been? You know, she's upset. She thought I was dead. Honestly, she thought I had drowned because I was gone that long. I mean, she, you know, it's like when you see somebody and you're so happy to see them, but at the same time you want to kill them because they've had you worrying for all that time. That's probably the point she was at. And I said, I really don't have the energy to even go into where I've been right now. I said, what I can tell you is there's no way I'm going to be able to get your father out of here. What we have here, they have there. Everywhere is like this. And we are on an island, you know, basically. And my wife says, well, you don't have to worry about it. Daddy's gone. And I said, what? And I'm going to stop it right there. I'm not going to tell you anything else, but the story that I have next for episode 5 is pretty amazing. So I'm going to stop it right there. We'll pick it up with episode 5 next week. But as you can see, we're getting into it. We're getting into some really crazy stuff now with this flood and the unbelievable things that occurred through my eyes and things that I experienced during this whole process, during this entire event. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to picking it up with episode 5 next week and why my father-in-law was not there anymore when there was no way out. You'll find it interesting. Thanks so much for listening. And please share this with whoever you think would like to hear it on Facebook.
How long was Neil Armstrong actually on the moon? When did Europe start speaking English? Did Marco Polo really go to China? CuriosityStream is the streaming service for all things history, plus science, wildlife, and more. What's the real story behind the Mona Lisa? We've got that. What caused the collapse of Rome? We know. Where did we find mankind's earliest ancestor? Come find out. For the holidays, give the gift of curiosity with 25% off gift cards for your curious cohorts. It's holiday shopping season at curiositystream.com/gift.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.